Greetings. I want to thank you for the opportunity to make a contribution to this important discussion. My name is Randy Thompson, representing Help Not Handcuffs Incorporated, which is a United States-based NGO in special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council. Our organization works to reform drug laws from a recovery and human rights perspective. What this means in practical terms is that we place the priority on a person's well-being and their human rights with the hope that if there's problematic drug use, that they will make better choices when help is offered. We oppose any coercive policies, including drug criminalization, which cause or increase harm to people who use drugs and could destroy their opportunities for recovery. I would like to briefly discuss some of the harms that drug criminalization is causing in my country as experienced by people who use drugs, as well as the solutions to these problems. As a person who used drugs myself and is now in recovery, I experienced problematic drug use. However, the most harm came not from using drugs, but from the negative effects of drug prohibition. These violent experiences came when I voluntarily entered a drug treatment program and later at the hands of law enforcement during a routine drug arrest. I believe I endured intensive violence not because I was a threat or causing harm, but because I was not viewed as a human being. The frail recovery that I had at the time was absolutely destroyed, and my attempt to get healthier was set back by years from my encounter with the two primary institutions that prohibition and drug-free ideals see as a solution to drug use. People experiencing these human rights violations by law enforcement, treatment programs, or other institutions face institutional betrayal and never see any recognition, let alone justice, for the violence or harm they endure. This betrayal involves institutions harming those reliant upon them by betraying the trust relationship they have with the community. Many oversight and accountability systems are obsolete or weak at best, and this has led Help Not Handcuffs to work on a model legislation to identify and address institutional betrayal. Sadly, these experiences are far from unusual. Forced interaction with police or treatment programs through drug criminalization brings definitive harm to people. It is well documented that intensive drug enforcement is tied to an increase in police violence and police sexual assault. In my country, there are no federally aggregated records of drug overdose death and human rights violations in treatment programs, so our organization was left to petition our home state for this information. The data we received revealed that drug overdoses were the third leading cause of death in those treatment programs, and only some of the human rights violations were tracked by the state. Also, our state's drug courts have seen 100 participants die in the past 5 years while being forced into that program. A later audit revealed that the drug court program had falsely inflated its success rates. It is important to note that treatment terms like evidence-based, state licensed, and federally accredited mean nothing when a person encounters a culture that fosters human rights violations. Despite this information being known, it is currently not shared with the public. Legislative efforts to offer individuals and families only the most superficial transparency of overdose death and human rights violations at treatment programs have gained traction, but require much more political will. Not only are individuals and families blindsided by not having this information, but lawmakers routinely make decisions without these facts in hand. These points are important because we are quick to assume that people who use drugs need treatment or can be assisted to make better decisions if involved in the criminal justice system or a drug court. The sad fact is that arrest and treatment can be harmful or outright deadly. These notions also ignore the reality that most people who use drugs do not experience problematic drug use. And the minority of drug users who do have a substance use disorder recover on their own without any treatment. Subjecting people to arrest for recreational drug use is a wildly disproportionate sanction, and it is very risky. For the substance use disorder population, prohibition means arresting someone for displaying a symptom of a clinically identifiable health issue. I want to bring up another alarming trend in my country that has gained attention: the skyrocketing fentanyl deaths, which have increased 540% in just the past 3 years and have surpassed heroin overdoses. Prohibition policy has removed all of the legal institutions which would have offered protections for consumers. These prohibition-caused deaths can easily be prevented by reinstating conservative harm reduction and regulatory approaches like drug consumption rooms and heroin-assisted treatment programs. Drug regulation instead of criminalization would ensure that deadly levels of fentanyl are not consumed by the public. The takeaway from this disheartening testimony is that prohibition is a clear driver of harm that can be avoided in the implementation of the ungas outcome document. Instead of clinging to a policy that has failed and caused incalculable human suffering, there is an opportunity to honor the human rights mandate in the outcome document by putting human rights before our contempt of drug use. For your reference, I am attaching our previous submissions, which give more detail on the above issues, and I thank you again for the opportunity to be part of this discussion.